10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Growing bolder, what's next?
With Mark and Bill and Laura.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Mark. That's Bill. And of course, that is Laura. Welcome back to Growing Boulders. What's next? You know, guys, it's hard to believe that it is already the final day of July. Time is just going faster and faster all the time. And no doubt the pandemic's probably responsible for making time seem like it's going faster.
Yeah, we're so anxious for something to move forward, right? To get out of this time vortex and warp and to move forward.
It's crazy. Let me start, and there's a reason for this, by asking you guys a question and be honest. Are you happy? I mean, I know we all present ourselves as happy, and you know, certainly in our social channels, we try not to complain. But are you guys really happy?
You know, I'm going to say that, yes, I am, but I work on it every day. I honestly do. I have a system in the morning of prayer and meditation and visualization, and that sets the tone for a happy day for me. But it takes a lot of work. It's not something that just you wake up being happy.
And, you know, I hadn't even really thought about that. I wonder how many people don't. You know, we worry about everything else, but sometimes we kind of forget about the core questions in life.
Yeah, you know, it's a great conversation, and it's one we're going to have. And I'll be honest with you, I work at it too, Laura. You know, and I try to remind myself with gratitude by reminding myself what I have to be happy about. But if I'm honest, you know, I think at a very deep level, I'm a happy person, but I'm unhappy multiple times every single day. And I like you, have to work to, you know, to kind of bring the happiness to the surface. And the reason we're mentioning this, folks, is we've got a great interview coming up. It's with the happiness guru, if you will. Her name is Gretchen Rubin. She's one of the world's most respected experts on happiness and human nature. She's a best-selling author worldwide many times over. She's the host of one of the most popular podcasts in America, and we've got her coming up in just a moment to talk about, among many other things, finding happiness in the age of COVID. Let's talk about something else that we've all seen on the news. The governor of Oregon, I think just last night maybe, said that federal troops, which she calls an occupying force, the governor of Oregon calls them an occupying force in the city of Portland, says that they will begin a phased withdrawal where their presence has certainly contributed to many nights of violent clashes with local protesters. Their presence has resulted in the creation of the Wall of Moms. And I want to talk about that for just a second, because a local group of moms came together in just a matter of days with their unique protest. They're dressed in yellow, so they stand out. They link arm in arm. They form a human barricade between protesters and the police, singing lullabies and chanting, "Don't shoot your mother." So what do you guys think? What do you think about the Wall of Moms?
I think they're really brave women who have decided that they need to take a stand right now. And they follow a long group of women through history who have done this in other countries. I mean, think of the Million Mom March right here back in, what was that, 1990? And then you hear about them in Argentina and Sri Lanka. And MAD, remember MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving? Mothers wield power. They wield power because of their respectability and just that symbolism of protection that they provide.
Well, there is actually a bit of controversy, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But ultimately, there may be a wall of grandmothers as well, if Margaret Knopf has anything to say about it. Listen to this.
When we saw these moms forming a wall, we thought, well, our generation maybe should go down there too and make a statement for people our age, so that young people know that while it's their world and their future, we're behind them 100%. And I just have decided, oh well, if that goes on my headstone that I got sick while I was protesting, at least it's for a good cause. It's just such a terrible shame to live this long and see the kind of injustice that we're seeing right now.
Raise your hand if you're a mother out here.
Well, their protest certainly went viral in a hurry. Within a matter of days, there were chapters in St. Louis and New York and Chicago and other cities. And then there was a wall of vets. There was a wall of dads. And as we mentioned, guys, there is a controversy because, as Laura mentioned, there's been moms movements in the Black community, for many, many years who got almost no attention whatsoever. And you can see from the video, this is primarily a group of white women who wanted to get involved. So are they stealing the spotlight? Are they distracting from the real message? Their bylaws, if you will, say that they're not to talk unless the organizers ask them to talk. They are only there to show their support for the cause that they are there for, and any money that they raise has to be contributed to the cause that they are there for as well. So it's a unique protest, but it is one that's generating controversy, as everything does these days.
Yeah, and we can also take a look at this thing from the 30,000 foot level, Mark and Laura, too, because maybe if we look at it to where it's not really about this particular group of moms, whether we agree with them or not, what it is about is realizing the ability that all of us have to start a conversation, to bring attention to issues that are important to us, regardless of our age, or especially because of our age, to bring visibility to items that need representation. So if you look at it in that respect, there's a lot we can learn from what they're doing.
And I love that grandmother you just showed, because so often the protesters are the teenagers. We count on them to be the ones to make the noise. And there's a lot of us to stand up for what we believe in. And if it isn't this cause that we're talking about, there's something you believe in enough that you need to stand up for. And I think that's laudable. I loved seeing that, Grandma.
And, it really is interesting. We live in this world of, an endless news cycle, multiple channels. And it was the poet and writer Allen Ginsberg who said, whoever controls the media, the images, controls the future. And, Jim Morrison from The Doors said, whoever controls the media controls the mind. And somebody said, whoever controls the media controls the masses. And I don't think there's any question that the battle to control the media from multiple different angles is more severe and more acrimonious than it ever has been right now. So it is frustrating wanting to get involved, but also understanding that if you don't get involved in the right way, you might be criticized. All right, let's turn the topic to a remarkable woman, because Hollywood lost a legend this past week. Two-time Oscar winner Olivia De Havilland passed away at her home in Paris at the age of 104. And, she wasn't just a great actress, folks, but she was instrumental in upending the very oppressive Hollywood studio system, back in the day, back in the 40s.
And, she continued those sort of battles, protecting her image and protecting the rights of actresses all the way up until, I think, 2007. She was arguing about someone who was misusing her image. And I didn't know this, but in 1946, I just found out, she actually stood up and was very outspoken about communism and standing up for democracy in Hollywood. Really a bold and beautiful woman.
Laura, you're right. She went to the Supreme Court over that miniseries. It was just a couple of years ago, Feud with Betty Davis and Joan Crawford, where she didn't like the way she was portrayed. And she tried to take her case at 101 to the Supreme Court. The other thing cool about Olivia De Havilland, guys, I'm a huge fan of old movies to the point that you don't want to be around me. She did movies, two in particular, about mental health that really freaked people out at the time. The Snake Pit and Dark Mirror. I mean, these were no holds barred looks at what mental illness was all about. Wow. And man, what a brave and powerful thing that she was involved in.
So, Laura, there's the grandmother, another grandmother that you were pining for, who was willing to take a stand. And yeah, she sued Warner Brothers back in 1943 when they tried to extend her contract without her permission. And the California Supreme Court sided with her. And to this day, that is informally known as the De Havilland Law. So, she's missed, but son of a gun, that's a pretty good run when you can die at home at 104 years old. All right,
and I
so
think it's worth mentioning quickly, though, she's the last of that golden era. She was the last one. We're moving on to others, but she belongs in our Hall of Fame, I think.
No, great point. Thank you for that. But now I'm excited to get on with what's next in this show, and that's what we think is going to be a pretty remarkable interview. Yeah. Gretchen Rubin is a woman whose voice is really needed now more than ever. She's one of the world's most respected, influential, and thought-provoking observers of happiness and human nature. Really interesting because she started her career in law and was clerking for Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor when she realized that she wanted to be a writer. So in a very growing bolder move, that's exactly what she set out to do. And let's acknowledge, folks, she's been kind of successful. She's the author of multiple blockbuster New York Times bestsellers, including Outer Order, Inner Calm, The Four Tendencies, Better Than Before, and The Happiness Project, which spent, I think, over 2 years on the bestseller list. All told, she has sold 3.5 million copies worldwide in more than 30 languages. She's the host of the award-winning podcast, The Happiness Project with Gretchen Rubin, which really has been named, and rightly so, one of the top podcasts in America every year since 2015. So let's welcome her from her home in New York City, Gretchen Rubin. Gretchen, how are you today?
I'm very happy to be talking to you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you using the word happy, but let's be honest. I mean, you're well known for helping all of us be happy. Are you happy? Is it more difficult some days to find that happiness place?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, I don't think sometimes people think that if you work on happiness, the aim is to be on a 1 to 10 scale at a 10 every single day. And, that's not realistic. And I don't even think that would be a good life, because sometimes it's very appropriate to have negative emotions, and negative emotions have a lot of positive benefits for us. But having done a lot of work on happiness and human nature, I definitely have a much bigger bag of solutions that when I'm feeling blue, or I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling anxious, or whatever, I have a lot of concrete ways to go about trying to address that, rather than just letting it unhappiness just kind of wash over me. So I'm basically the same, but I'm just much better at handling it than I was before I spent so much time studying it.
I really think that your message, Gretchen, is more important, more powerful, more relevant, at this moment than it's ever been. And of course, we all want to be happy, so it's always important. But I think that, we're all challenged in so many ways. Business is tough. People are having struggle putting food on the table. We're worried about the virus. Can you share a tip or two? I mean, what's and I know that if we read your book, we're going to get all of this, but is there some way to kind of center ourselves and remind ourselves that we can still be happy even during a time like this?
Yeah. So I'll give you something that works all the time and something that's specific for right now. So in general, if you said, what is the secret to a happy life? If you had to pick one thing, ancient philosophers and contemporary scientists would agree it's relationships. We need strong relationships in order to feel happy. And with everything that's going on, you see people trying to use new tools like Zoom, or, having a book club, meet virtually, or drive by, drinks and things like that. Because people recognize that they need to reach out. And it's hard because somebody said, we don't want to be socially distanced, but we need to be physically distanced. And that's tough. So anything you can do to broaden your relationships, deepen your relationships, keep your relationships active is something that's going to make you happier. And I think we all need to look out for people who maybe aren't as networked in, maybe who might not get a million texts over the course of the day, or not be invited to a bunch of Zoom meetings, and make sure that they're kind of looked after and taken care of and brought into social relationships. Now, what about this specifically this time? I think that one thing that many people are struggling with, I know I am, is the uncertainty. A lot of people are sort of like, if I had a deadline, if you could tell me a date and I could just work toward that deadline, I would be so much better. If you could tell me what's going to happen, what the world is going to look like January 1st, I could deal with it. But there's just this uncertainty. One thing that can help with that is, let's say you're facing, what is school going to look like? What is work going to look like? What are we going to do about XYZ vacation? What are we going to do about this family situation? It's easy to start to ruminate and have swirling thoughts. And you're like, but this, but this, but this, but this, and what about that? And what about that? And then you just get drained and overwhelmed. So make a flow chart, write it down, because it can seem like it's kind of countless outcomes or possibilities, but really there's probably just a handful. And if you write them down, there's this model, there's this model, there's this model. And then you can say, is this one likely? This one is not very likely. It's probably these 2 or 3. Okay, given that those are probably what I'm looking at, what are some concrete things that I could do to set myself up for that? Even if I don't know for certain that I'm going to be focusing on that, really identify what you're worried about, because a lot of times getting that clarity helps us identify solutions. It also gives us more of a feeling of control.
You know, one of the things that we're all staying home so much, Gretchen, and one of the things I'm finding is that there's some clutter around. So the other day in my office, this is so bad, I took all the boxes and I moved them into my husband's office, but mine feels so good now. And I read your clutter manifesto. Help us understand why clutter makes us feel so tied up.
Well, it's funny because I've been studying happiness, for so long, and I was just very struck by the degree to which, for most people, outer order contributes to inner calm. And that's why I wrote the book, Outer Order, Inner Calm, because you could say, like, what in the context of everything that's going on right now, what does it matter that you've got some boxes in your office? Like, that seems so inconsequential. And yet over and over, people tell me, like, I feel so much freer. I feel like I can focus. I feel like I have more energy. I feel like I've lost weight. A friend said to me, I finally cleared out my fridge and now I know I can switch careers. And I thought, I know how that feels. So I do think it's kind of irrational in a way, like a crowded coat closet or an overflowing in basket is just not consequential in the context of a happy life. And yet people do feel so much better. And I think it might be an illusion, but it's a helpful illusion. And certainly in this time of, I think partly to just give ourselves more elbow room and to increase the kind of livability and comfort in our homes, but also kind of to assert control. Like, I can't control the virus, but I can control my utility closet. People are cleaning up. A friend of mine, think of how genius this is, at the beginning of Safer at Home, like the serious lockdown, her 3 adult sons were coming home to be with her family in their like suburban Philadelphia house. She had the foresight to rent a dumpster, and she spent the next like 10 weeks making her big sons run stuff out of the closets and out into the dumpster and to give away once they could give things away again. It was like, okay, that's brilliant. But I think there is this sense that when we create outer order in our surroundings, we boost our sense of focus and energy. And it's sort of like we get rid of the things we don't use, the things we don't need, the things we don't love, the things that are maybe broken, things that are outmoded. A lot of things now, because of technology, you don't really use that calculator anymore. You don't use that digital recorder. You don't use that fax machine. So why? It's perfectly good. It's useful. Someone else maybe could use it, but you're not using it. So go ahead and get rid of it and give yourself that elbow room, and then free up space for other things that you really are using. And especially now, you may have to rearrange your space because you need like a privacy room for people to take phone calls or take a class, or maybe you need, you want to make a standing desk out of an ironing board or something like that. People are coming up with very creative solutions for what we're facing.
I heard that on your podcast. The ironing board tip.
But see, also it's like you're in like a walking. A lot of people are using like walk-in closets and like pantries and things, like rooms that aren't really rooms. But it's a great ledge. Like if you have to have a lamp or you need some supplies.
And who's ironing anyway?
Who's ironing anyway? I'm wearing yoga pants and t-shirts. Yeah.
We're talking with Gretchen Rubin, and folks, these are great tips. And Gretchen, the thing about listening to you is, and this is the reason that you have to buy her books, is because it makes so much sense. It seems so simple, and then 2 seconds later, we completely forget and we fall back into our own habits. So we all think to ourselves, am I happy? And my answer is, well, of course I am, because I get it. It's just everyone around me brings me down all the time. So what do we do if we're in circles, or homes, or the circle of friends that we have who maybe bring a little bit of negativity into everything?
Well, that's a real issue because research shows that we really do communicate emotions with each other. That's called emotional contagion. We literally infect each other with our emotions. And this isn't even just in person. You can pick up an emotion from somebody from a phone call or even looking at a photograph. So we are very susceptible to each other's moods. I think one thing, and another thing that research shows is about 50% of happiness is genetically determined. So some people are born Tiggers and some people are born Eeyores, and that's pretty much hardwired. Then about 15 to 20% is life circumstances. That's health, income, marital status, education, occupation. And then all the rest is very much a product of our conscious thoughts and actions. And that's where we can really have our own happiness project, is in that section. So some people are just naturally like in the 7 to 10 range, and some people are more naturally, in the 4 to 7 range. And I think sometimes the people who are on the higher range they want other people to lift up, because partly for their own benefit, but also because they feel drained by it, and so I want you to be more ebullient because it's going to make me feel better. I think we absolutely, happy people help make other people happy. So we lift people with our own happiness. But I do think you can really polarize people and antagonize people if you take someone who's just naturally lower down on the scale and you're constantly kind of nudging them. Look at the bright side, smile. It's not so bad. I don't understand. Because those folks, they're like, you're not realistic, which research shows that many people are kind of unrealistically optimistic. It's a helpful attitude and it's actually a productive attitude, but it is kind of unrealistic. So they feel like they're right and they don't appreciate it. And so what can happen is if one person's kind of on somebody trying to like make them happy, you see this a lot of times with parents, very upbeat parents who have more kind of less upbeat children. They don't like that, and it almost kind of makes things worse. So we want to accept people. One thing that's always good to do is to acknowledge the reality of other people's feelings. What research shows is that when you acknowledge the reality of someone's feelings, it helps them to feel heard and kind of let go of it. If you try to persuade them they don't feel what they feel, you're not depressed. This is fun. You're having fun. You never liked that anyway. Given everything that's going on in the world, you're here to complain to me that you're not going to your gymnastics class. It's like, that doesn't make people feel better. That doesn't make people feel heard. But if you say, gosh, it is really disappointing. You were looking forward to that class. You just were thinking about it. You had your outfit all picked out for the first day and now it's not happening. Then a person can be like, yeah, but I guess everything is getting canceled. They can get, so that's another thing, is not trying to insist that people look on the bright side or, feel gratitude or, but to acknowledge what they feel and allow them to kind of be their natural self too. But it is hard. And I should say, like depression, I'm talking about the kind of ordinary happiness and unhappiness. True depression is a very serious condition. It needs to have every tool in the toolbox thrown at it. It needs a lot of attention, immediate attention, expert attention. I'm not talking about that. That's like a third thing. I'm talking about people who are feeling like ordinary blues, ordinary dejection, disappointment, irritation, that kind of thing.
And I feel so many people are doing this whole looking back at past wrongs right now. They're looking back at so regretful over things that happened in their childhood. I have people after person writing to me on email about these things. Is that the same kind of thing where we just acknowledge and say, okay, you have a little time on your hands. You're looking in the rearview mirror. Let's look forward. Is that a good answer?
Well, are you seeing this specifically with COVID? I haven't noticed this.
Yes.
How fascinating. So you feel like people kind of have the open space to ruminate? And
yes.
How fascinating. I have not seen that. That is so interesting.
Maybe I just have the wrong friends.
No, but I think that is very fascinating. Well, because one thing that's happening is people have kind of this open space. It's like everybody's schedule is so much more open Right. So one person's learning guitar, one person's baking sourdough bread, somebody else is watching Game of Thrones, and somebody else is reminiscing about how mean their sister was to them.
Exactly. That's the stuff.
Oh, interesting. And you know what? I wonder if something that's contributing to that is a lot of people are like sheltering in place. I have many friends who are adult children who are with their parents, and it's easy to fall back into those old patterns and to be reminded of old wrongs and slights and irritations. How interesting. Now, I have not thought about that, but I think you're exactly right. I think it's not to say like, you shouldn't feel that way. It's to say that's how you remember it. And thinking back on it, you really have these bad feelings. And like, I'm here to talk to you about that. Yeah. I mean, if it's a serious thing, I think they might want to have a professional help to talk about it if it starts to become intrusive or to affect their current relationships in a significant way.
I've learned a lot in this interview already, Gretchen, but I have to tell you my favorite moment so far was witnessing the spontaneous moment of fascination that you just exhibited, because I think, and I mean this with all due respect, Gretchen Rubin is a self-made expert. She's an example of what anybody can become. No, I mean, this is what happens when you've got an inquisitive mind, you're fascinated with this stuff, and you've got the ability to not only research, but organize the research, and then the ability of a brilliant writer. And I think starting with happiness, it just seems so natural that as you understood happiness, that the right kind of habits became important. So you wrote a book about that. Uncluttering became important. So let me throw out one more, because we believe, Bill, Laura, and I, that growing bolder is a key to happiness, especially as we get older. We're talking about risk-taking, and not the kind of risk that will jeopardize our health or our security, but the kind of risks that involve potential failure in terms of relationships or experiences or, learning new stuff. What do you think about, as we grow older, opening ourselves up and taking risk, if not now, when kind of thing?
Exactly. Well, I think absolutely. I completely agree with you for a couple. One is research shows that novelty and challenge make people happier. Even something as small as like going to a new restaurant instead of your old favorite diner tends to make people happier. So doing things that are new, doing things that are challenging. But the thing about challenge is that it often does involve negative emotions like anxiety, fear, frustration, embarrassment. So you sort of have to accept that this isn't going to be easy. I have to work through this, but I know that if I get to the other side, probably even if I fail, because research shows that people regret the things they don't do more than the things that they do and fail at, I'm going to feel better for it. Also, my time is going to feel richer. And this is something that we're all experiencing with COVID. When every day is the same, time speeds up. When we do new things, time slows down and feels rich. And so if you want your life to feel rich and full, doing new things is going to slow that down. Anybody who's had a new baby knows this. The minute you have a new baby, it's like one day is a month. The first week is a year. You feel like you've lived a lifetime by the time that child is a year old, in a good way, in a way that makes you feel like your life is rich. Now, but you pointed out the things like you don't want to do something that's going to jeopardize you. And I think there's a tension within happiness that I've thought a lot about. So I think on the one hand, to live a happy life, we need to accept ourselves. We need to look truthfully in the mirror. We have to accept our own nature, our own character, our own values. We have to not live a fantasy self. We can't try to live up to someone else's idea of what we should be. So we have to accept ourselves. At the same time, we want to expect more from ourselves. We want to push the limits of what we're comfortable with. We want to challenge ourselves. We want to do things that maybe do make us feel uncomfortable and go outside, the comfort zone. And people are always like, how do you tell if I'm accepting myself or expecting more from myself? Like, if I want to, get better at like public speaking, maybe I should just accept the fact that I'm not a public speaker and move on, and then I'll have more time for other things. Or maybe I need to challenge myself and I would actually push past this period of discomfort and get comfortable with it and good at it. Only each person can know what is the line between accepting yourself and expecting more from yourself. But usually if you say to people, I think a good question is, choose the bigger life. What for you would be the bigger life? Because a lot of times people would be like, yeah, that's not really, that's not a bigger life for me. I'm not like, that's not a future that is appealing to me. But then a lot of times it's like, if you say, well, if you were going to do this or not, which is the bigger life? People would instantly say, this is like if somebody said to me, Gretchen, you want to learn guitar? I'd be like, no, this is like, that's not a good use of my time. I'm not interested. I don't care. It's not worth it. That would be a smaller life for me, because what do I care about playing guitar? For other people, it would be like just incredibly exciting and revitalizing to think about learning guitar or getting back into guitar, right? A lot of times people need to reclaim things that have fallen away. That can be challenging, but exciting.
It's like having things to look forward to, right, Mark? That's kind of where you were going, and Gretchen too, is that, learning the guitar, if you don't have a reason to do it, it's another chore. But even having a to-do list, which a lot of us don't have now during the pandemic, not having that is kind of disorienting. Having things to look forward to, knowing that we're going to see people, knowing we have to accomplish things, whether it's a garden project or something at work, that's something that we really need to hold on to for structure.
No, I completely agree. And one thing that I'm really trying to look for ways to incorporate in my own life and talking to other people about it is like, look for projects with a beginning, middle, and an end. Like learning guitar maybe wouldn't be a good one, or unless you like set yourself like, I want to learn to play this song where I can actually do that. You're not going to learn Italian. And, pick something where you can like get it done or make a lot of progress, like replant your garden. I decided that I was going to learn how to play Texas Hold'em. I don't know how to play poker. I'm like, I'm going to learn how to play poker. And like, I bought a poker set and I printed out like, what is a flush? What is a straight? And I'm trying to memorize it. And I'm like, I can learn to play poker. I won't be good at poker, but I can learn to play poker. And it's like something that I've kind of always thought everybody should know how to play poker. If only to understand the plots of all the movies that revolve around poker. And that's something I could do. And I'll come out of this and I'll be like, I learned how to play poker. And I think that for people who do have this feeling of kind of boundlessness and aimlessness and so many things that we looked forward to and planned on and probably spent a lot of time and energy setting up and money have been taken away, saying like, okay, I'm going to do this, even if it's something like back to clutter, cleaning up my home office. These things give us that sense of I've used my time while I've made progress. Also, if you're worried about economic uncertainty, it can be really good. I'm going to update my resume. I'm going to learn. I'm going to take an online class to learn how to use Excel better, or whatever it might be. I'm going to learn how to use a new software. People in my office say it's helpful. I never had the time before. My sister works in Hollywood, and she hasn't updated her writing program. She knows it would be so much easier and save her time. But learning all the updates, it's such a nuisance. And she was just too busy. I'm like, do it now. Final draft. This is your moment. Do it. And then you're setting yourself up for more productivity and also perhaps making yourself a more attractive hire if you end up on the job market. You've updated all of your LinkedIn profiles and whatever. It's a lot of work, but it can be done. It's a project that with a beginning, middle, and an end that's going to set you up for the future. Well,
unfortunately, this interview has had a beginning, a middle, and now we have to reach the end. Gretchen, it's been fascinating. We got to hang out more in the future. Thank you so much for your time, folks. If you want to learn more about Gretchen Rubin, find out how you can buy her books, listen to her podcast, go to GretchenRubin.com. And guys, I think I learned two things important today. Number one, choose the bigger life. And number two, rent a dumpster. Gretchen, thank you so much. Was fascinated with at the end, and I think it's a great point. This pandemic is not going to end anytime soon, and I don't think any one of us, want to look back and say, hey, I gained 25 pounds, I got out of shape, I lost this, I didn't do that, and so what can we do? Even if it's as silly as learning how to play poker, we can look back and say, well, that's when I did this. So, I'm gonna try to. Maybe create a couple new paintings before this thing is over.
I like it. I was taking pages of notes. I don't know if you noticed, but I thought she was fantastic. I learned so much from her today.
Yeah, it's something too how she does such a great job of breaking it down, because happiness doesn't just happen all the time. Sometimes you need to build the foundation for it, right? And that comes from having the right people in your life that you can share things with and who encourage you to think and to experience. And that happens to be something that we call finding your tribe. Well, as I'm sure you've experienced in your own life, it's kind of human nature to search for belonging, for people we trust, to find people that'll support us and challenge us and encourage us to do the things that we really want to do, to be who we really want to be. And that's what we call finding your tribe. Holly Dates found hers on a bicycle. And Holly, thank you for joining us. We know that your story is really pretty interesting because it started with a move halfway across the country. What happened?
My college sweetheart contacted me after 35 years of silence, and we started emailing and corresponding. And then one day he actually invited me to come visit him in the Villages because he had a place here in the Villages, and I fell in love with it right away. And it didn't take long for me to sell my home, retire from a long career in the dental field, and come across country. I was 57 at the time I retired, which was younger than I had planned to. But the opportunity to reconnect with somebody who was very important in my life spurred the whole thing.
So when you moved clear across the country, quit your job, moved into a new environment, you must have felt like, remember back in third grade when you were the new kid and the only new kid in the class after moving to a new neighborhood. How hard was that? And how much did you struggle with finding your identity and stepping out?
Well, I brought my bike down and I went to a Saturday morning bike ride, and these people were so wonderful and inviting and encouraging that I came back the next day and the next. And I decided to stay here in Florida, but it was the bike club that convinced me this is the place I wanted to live, because the people were so warm and caring and genuine and diverse. And I was like, yes, this is my place. And from there, I've built more new relationships that have expanded to golf and pickleball and other things, other activities, book clubs. But I would say my core friendship is based on the people in the bike club.
Now, was that a picture of you on a tandem bike? Do you ride a tandem bike?
Yes, I also ride a tandem. I have a tandem partner, and people say, "Oh, is that your husband?" And I said, "That's my second husband." Dan and his wife Jana are wonderful friends of ours, but we have learned a long time ago, sometimes tandem riding isn't the best thing for married couples, not always. And so anyways, I just have a passion for tandem riding, and so does Dan. So we do enjoy tandem riding as well as our single bikes.
We all know we should be more active, but what would you say to someone to actually get them to step out and do it?
I would say, what do you have to lose? That would be my comment. When I listen to somebody who is frustrated and very negative or just feeling like there's no place for them, I might make a suggestion, and then I might look at them and say, what do you have to lose? And the worst thing is you find out you don't like it and you try something else. But 9 times out of 10, you try something and it opens other doors.
Were you worried that, oh man, I'm moving into a retirement community, maybe this is the beginning of the end?
It crossed my mind briefly, but the truth is, once you come down here and you get in your golf cart and you go to the square and you see people out, the exact opposite happens. You realize these people have a renewed sense of life. They have discovered that staying healthy and active is what it's all about.
Holly Dates living a full and active and healthy life and a whole new beginning. There are all kinds of activities and interests that you can dive into. Holly found her tribe on a bicycle built for two. Where will you find yours?
Does your Medicare Advantage plan come with enough advantages? How about a quarterly magazine? To learn more about the only Medicare Advantage plan that includes everything Growing Bolder has to offer, go to growingbolder.com/Medicare.
Florida Blue Medicare, they're not just an advertiser on this program, they're a partner, a special company that came to us and said, we agree with what you stand for, encouraging all of us to go bold And choosing the right Medicare plan can be what it takes to help you do just that. It can be confusing. So at Growing Bolder, we created what we call our outrageously interesting, dare we say, easy to understand guide to Medicare. So if you're of that age, or a parent or somebody you know is, get yours right now for free. There are tips on how to live a great life too, even if you're not even interested in Medicare. Check it out, growingbolder.com/Medicare. How about that?
Thank you, Mr. Bill. Laura, what are we going to talk about next?
Well, I have to tell you, back in June, or maybe it was May, Jimmy said to me, we've got to get our absentee ballots in because of COVID, we've got to make sure we're ready. Well, we sent in all the information and he got his back and I didn't. So I started thinking, oh my gosh, now we're only 3 months out. Can you believe that? We're 3 months out from the election. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. So I said, how can we all easily find a way to vote? How can we get those absentee or mail-in ballots? And I found a website, and I think we have it. There it is, usvotefoundation.org. And this is a nonpartisan public charity. They're not related to the government. It's volunteer run, and they have such an easy website to use. You can look up your state. It will give you the deadlines for filling out your forms. You'll find the forms. You'll find the answers to your questions. And it really makes it easy for us all to have our vote counted. But I'm going to tell you, I think you really need to do that now, because I have a feeling that the post office might get a little backed up if we're all voting by mail. So get those forms now and go to that website.
You know, it's a great point, and thank you for making it. And folks, I hope we don't need to say this, but this is not a political statement. We don't care who you vote for. You know, that's your constitutional right, and none of our business. But do exercise your right, because that's what America is about. So yes, figure out a way to vote and make sure that you do vote. So, Laura, great information. Thank you for that. Let's look at our meme and wrap this thing up, because our meme kind of wraps up, everything we've talked about today. Happiness is the new rich, inner peace is the new success, health is the new wealth, kindness is the new cool, and bolder is the new older. And that's pretty much what's on my mind today, folks. I was very interested and enthused to see, Margaret at the top of this show, the grandmother who joined the wall of moms, and I've wondered why more of us in general don't do that, because, over the last few decades, we've never been afraid to stand up. We've never been afraid to speak our mind. We've spoken against injustice. We've spoken and fought for equal rights and equal pay and equal access. But today, for whatever reason, our voices have mostly gone silent. And I think because of that we seem far too willing to inhabit, if not embrace, the very demeaning stereotype that our culture has created for us. In fact, the voice of older Americans that is most magnified these days is, that of the irate shopper who's throwing a tantrum because she doesn't want to wear a mask, or the man and woman that are waving guns at protesters in their neighborhood, or the guy yelling white power to a group of protesters. And, these are not the behaviors or the opinions of the majority of older Americans, but it is the brush with which we allow ourselves to be painted with if we don't stand up and present something different. It is the image that we endorse with our silence. So, yes, we're dealing with significant issues for which there are no easy answers. And as we've said multiple times on this program, human rights should not be a political issue. The delivery of equal opportunity and justice to everybody should be something that unites us and doesn't divide us. So let me just say this. If we don't yet understand what it's like to be considered less than, because of our privileged lives, eventually we will, because ageism will make us feel the sting of indifference and the fear of neglect. It will cast us on the other side of the cultural divide, where we will be continually devalued, demeaned, and diminished. We will become the others. That's why ageism is something that impacts every one of us. So we not only need to join this fight, but more importantly, we need to lead it with love and kindness. And with experience. because we've done that over the decades. We've not only witnessed change, we have helped bring about change, and we have learned from that experience. And, for better or for worse, we're not done yet, or we shouldn't be done yet. So that's what's on my mind. What's on your mind? Always, we welcome respectful opinions, even if they differ greatly from ours. So please feel free to share. All right, guys, another show. Wasn't Gretchen Rubin fun?
Oh, she was terrific. Can I leave you with a giggle?
Please.
My niece sent me a text yesterday and said, "Did you get my thank you card?" I said, "Of course I did." She goes, "Oh, I put it in that big blue box. I didn't know if that was going to work." It's just a new way of looking at things.
And we could talk about this forever. We were having a conversation with one of the guys in our office the other day who asked me, someone told him that back in the day, videographers had to carry a big machine with a big 3/4 inch tape in it. And was that true? And I said, my God, that's how we started. And now today, we had to have, there was no such thing as satellite TV. You couldn't do a live shot. You had to lug 100 pounds of equipment. And now today, look what we're doing right now. We can go live with video anywhere around the world with something this big. So yeah, stuff has changed.
It has.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm looking right over here, Mark, and I still have the old beta tapes.
There you go.
Look at the size of these things. Can you imagine?
And you lugged around the recorder in the field with those.
You got, about 20 minutes of use on each tape.
Well, good for us to keep moving with technology.
Bill and I got some war stories, so don't get us started, Laura, any more than you already did. Folks, thanks so much. Have a great weekend, and I hope you enjoy rendezvousing with us every Friday, because we certainly do with you, and we will see you next Friday right here.
See you next Friday.
Growing older, what's next?